Right, let's get into talk about Gyökeres for a little bit, because I know lots of people keep coming in and saying, look, Craig, what about Victor Gyökeres? And I've always said to you, Liverpool aren't going to make a move for him, and, you know, I am right about that. But David Ornstein said Arsenal are developing a strong interest in signing Victor Gyökeres as a possible striker signing. Andrea Berta, firm admirer of the 26-year-old. Berta now obviously Arsenal sporting director, having come in from Atletico Madrid. That was announced today or yesterday, I can't remember when it was. So this piece here from David Ornstein said, expected to figure prominently among Arsenal's options, may be more realistic than Isak. So what do you think about that one? I mean, I'm glad we're not the ones taking the punt on Victor Gyökeres, to be honest with you, because I'm on the side of people who think that's like Darwin Núñez 2.0, roll of the dice, bringing them in from the Portuguese league. So yeah, I'm glad it's not us, but it'll be interesting to see if Arsenal do, because if Arsenal start to look in that direction, maybe that's a signal that we are the front runners for the signature of Alexander Isak. Let's wait and see. Will Manchester United, as an example, be able to get the money together to make a move for Gyökeres in the summer? Let's wait and see on that. But for me, I don't know how I'd feel about him at Arsenal. It'd be an interesting one. I'd be intrigued to see how he gets on. Certainly would make Arsenal a bit stronger, no denying that, but I'd feel a lot more scared if they brought in Šeško, as an example. I think over the course of time, he will prove to be a top-notch player, and I think with Gyökeres, it's still a bit of a roll of the dice. Anthony said, Šeško's a huge upgrade on Havertz, and for his role in the team, aside from goals, Havertz was a good job for them, said Anthony. Yeah, look, I'd feel a lot more relaxed if they got Gyökeres over Šeško. I think maybe in the shorter term, Gyökeres might have an impact that Arsenal fans want, but I think in the longer term, the better piece of business would be to get Benjamin Šeško. Let's move on to Matheus Cunha for a minute, because, well, he's been speaking about his future, and he's admitted that he wants to move away and he wants to kick on with his career. This is what Matheus Cunha's had to say, and I kind of like what he said, in all honesty. He said, I had a lot of offers, but I wouldn't feel well if I had done it, speaking about the January window. Some things you can't control, but I couldn't leave the club in the middle of the season in a difficult situation in the relegation zone. Now we're close to achieving our goal of staying up in the Premier League, but I've made it clear that I need to take the next step. I want to fight for titles, for big things. I have potential. Thoughts on that one? I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. Some people can think it's a little bit snide maybe, but I think he's admitted he could have left in the January window. He decided to stay. We know the release clause that's in his deal, so Wolves will get a significant amount of money. Where does he go, though? You know, will it be Liverpool? Maybe not. Certainly it looks like we have all our eggs in the Isak basket at this moment in time. We're going to move on to talk about Gyökeres and why Arsenal are looking strongly at him. David Ornstein reported that. We'll talk about that in a moment. Man like Spence, how are you, bro? Said, if both strikers leave, would you buy two rotating options, e.g. Cunha and Hugo, because I still can't say his name right, or would you rather splash the cash on a man like Isak or Alvarez? So I would rather splash the cash on one if we knew that Jayden Danns was going to be the other option. If we don't know what's up with Jayden Danns, or the club don't feel confident that he's the guy to come in and be the backup option, it still would probably depend for me what happens with Chiesa. If the club keep Chiesa around, he can be utilised through the middle as an option. But of course, you do want a bona fide 30-goal-a-season striker if you're going to spend a lot of dough. So, good question, man. I'm leaning towards one of either Alvarez or Isak, to be honest with you. Wouldn't say no, though, to the likes of a Šeško or adding in maybe something like a Delap as well there. But it's a really interesting question, and I'm intrigued to see what others think on it, mate. So thank you for bringing it up, and thank you for your super chat. Do let me know what you guys think about that, though. Would you rather a couple of rotating options, or maybe not even rotating, but a couple of good options, a couple of £60 million players, like a Cunha, like a Šeško, like a Delap, or would you rather put all your eggs in the Alexander Isak or Julian Alvarez 100 million plus market? Mary said, I don't see anything wrong with what he said. So initially he was done a little bit dirty, because Romano just put up a post to say, Matheus Cunha, I've made it clear I need to take the next step. I want to fight for titles. And that's not really doing justice to what he said. So that's why I wanted to read you out more context of what he said, Mary. And I agree with you. Certainly in the context I read it out, it doesn't sound as bad. But if you look at Romano's post, it kind of does look a little bit shitty. Ken said, I rather like Isak than Dunlap. You mean Delap, Liam Delap. Yeah, look, Delap is definitely a bit of a punt if you look at it that way. You know, you're getting somebody who, yes, has played in the Premier League and has shown that he can score, but has done it in a team that's awful. So, no disrespect meant to Ipswich there, but they are going straight back down. I would probably want a larger sample size of him in the Premier League before I'd be ready to really say yes or no. Especially because we're already moving on from a roll of the dice and Darwin Núñez. That hasn't worked out. You want bona fide proven talent at this point. For all the names Liverpool have been linked to, how many of those end up at Liverpool? Feeling summer transfer window will be rinse and repeat. Again, my man, I don't disagree with a lot of what you've said. I said last night that I have to come on here and try to be upbeat about things, because if I don't, I'm going to drag everybody down. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I also feel very skeptical about a lot of the stuff that have been doing the rounds, but, you know, let's wait and see. I think this is the summer, Stevie boy. I'm going to leave that up for a minute, actually. This is the summer where there's no hiding place, right? We've run out of excuses now. So we had new sporting director in, Michael Edwards back. No more excuses there. They've been in long enough. New manager in who wanted to assess his squad. Well, no more excuses there. Had 2 windows to do that. Needed to see what happened with the contract situations. Well, that's resolving itself as well. So there's no hiding place anymore for a lack of transfer activity. They're going to try, Stevie boy, and I know I'm right about this, they're going to try use that wage bill bullshit excuse over and over again. And certain journalists are going to try back them up on it. But that's where we have to be strong and call this crap out. Because I'm still as confused as anybody about how we actually ended up with a higher wage bill. But ultimately, there's no way on God's green earth that I'm believing that we're in some type of financial difficulty. It doesn't make any sense. So we should have the ability to go out and improve. Now, we've also started to see some stuff around PSR and saying if Trent leaves that could be a bit of a headache for Liverpool. Well, tough. The club allowed this situation to develop. So if it becomes a PSR headache, you don't get to use that as an excuse not to spend money, because fans have had all those excuses. We could have told you 2 years ago to renew the Trent situation. So by allowing that to develop, if there's some potential headaches there for the club, well then it's time to start moving on some of those fringe players that we all know just won't make it at Liverpool. I'm talking about the Tyler Mortons of this world there. They should all be moved on and cashed in on this summer, because we need to make every goddamn penny count. And that will require some bravery in the market. Applehead said, why Isak? Classic number 9 was never our style, i.e. Núñez. Would you call Núñez a typical number 9? I don't know if I would, in all honesty. Why Isak? I guess goals. Simple as that. Puts the ball in the back of the net. He is a well-rounded player as well, Isak. But Alvarez would be my number 1. So for me, if you gave me those 2 options, I'd go for Julian Alvarez over Alexander Isak. But I think Arne Slot wants somebody who is going to be prolific, and we can't be depending on Mo to just keep bailing us out with a gluttony of goals every season.